ever hear the tragedy of
game improvement golf clubs?
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk about game improvement irons in the industry, why they might not be helping you out, and some things that you could probably consider when you're going to your next fitting or considering a purchasing decision. Game improvement irons have been around for a while. The hallmarks of game improvement irons are generally significant offset, larger club head size, and sometimes stronger lofts. If we go ahead and look at the literature on Golf Digest for the game improvement irons, we can see that pretty much every major brand has some representation here. The really big consistent part about all these clubs is that they tend to be hollow body irons. This is a trend that's been picking up within the last 5 to 10 years, and it seems to have made a stay in the golfing community. If we take a look at the super game improvement irons, we'll still have the same categorization of hollow body irons, but now we have hybrid like irons where they start to take on a more hybrid profile. So what exactly is the problem with game improvement irons for the typical player? In my experience as a scratch player, the downsides of these clubs are that you don't really have an iron to grow into as you improve. In golf, you can rapidly improve your game in as little as 3 to 6 months, and your irons will either work for you or against you. One of the interesting things about game improvement irons is they're significantly stronger lofts. Now, manufacturers will claim that the game improvement irons will launch higher, and that is true, but it's not necessarily true in the way that you would consider.
the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
So, how game improvement irons launch higher is generally through the principle of offset. Now, what offset does is it moves the center of gravity backwards in the golf club, and when the center of gravity moves back in a golf club, the angle of incidence between the golf ball and the face at impact is slightly different compared to a club with less offset. Therefore, if we compared two golf clubs with the same loft, the game improvement iron should launch about 1 to 2 degrees higher. Unfortunately, you cannot have your cake and eat it too in this industry. The drawback for that is that the ball will go higher and it might have less backspin, which is more stopping power with your irons. The other drawback with game improvement irons is that because they tend to be hollow body irons, the distance distribution from well-struck center shots is going to be wider than a single piece forged golf club. It's not all bad though. The clubs do work. It's just that there's some interesting design decisions being made here by manufacturers in order to sell players on the idea of game improvement. When we're considering the irons that we put into our bag, loft is the primary reason why shots behave the way that they do. If we take a 30-degree golf club from any manufacturer and we move it at the same club head speed and give it the same impact conditions, the difference between the shots, both in their carry and total distances, are not really going to be significantly different. Loft is king, and so with your game improvement irons how you set up your loft distribution throughout the bag is very important for taking on a course. Game improvement irons have this interesting issue where they don't really have good loft distribution at both the top and end of the bag, but they have okay loft distribution at the midpoint. What tends to happen is that longer game improvement irons, such as your 4 and 5 irons, there's no more 3 iron because they're gone, they tend to hit very close to one another and they will roll out pretty significantly. And the reason why they roll out is that amateur golfers simply do not have the swing speed to get the appropriate height with these irons. If we look at the bottom of the bag near the 9 iron and pitching wedge and the newly minted gap wedge in these sets, you'll see that there is a significant loft jump between clubs. A classic traditional 9 iron is 43 or 44 degrees. If you would like a reference to that, you can look up the MP14 or MP29 iron specifications from the mid-1990s. These were the irons that Tiger used to win the 1997 Masters. At 43 degrees of loft, the club is now known as the pitching wedge in a modern set, and I've even seen some pitching wedges as low as 40 or 41 degrees, which is not really going to help you out with wedges in the bag. The most important distances in golf are 130 yards and in. This is where a significant amount of strokes are going to be performed on the course. As we can see here, we have a major jump from 43 degrees of loft to 48, and the user may not be wary of the fact that they might say, oh, I have a gap wedge, my next club after that is going to be my sand wedge. And their sand wedge might be 56 degrees, which is an 8-degree loft jump, which is very significant with yardage gapping. At the end of the day, taking on golf courses requires you to know your distances and your rollout numbers so that if you attack pins, you can be very confident that if the pin is, say, 135 yards and you have a 9 iron or pitching wedge that goes 130, you're going to be leaving yourself a 15-foot putt. With modern clubs, these consistent distances are not there anymore. Yes, the lofts will still do the distance based on the loft alone, but you may find yourself shortchanged with needing to purchase extra wedges to fill in the gaps between your already existing wedges. In this example with the Apex DCB, we would need to purchase a secondary gap wedge at the 52-degree mark in order to bridge the gap between this attack wedge or approach wedge and our sand wedge. So at the end of the day, what we have ended up doing is we've bought 8 irons in this set for maybe $1,300 or $1,500, and we have poor distance coverage. The other interesting thing is that the 4 iron in this set is 20 degrees of loft, and for amateur golfers, it's not recommended to give them a golf club to hit below 23 degrees.
It's ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself.
Players will significantly struggle with those golf clubs simply because they don't have the swing speed to get the ball airborne. It will just roll and run out and be very, very low. I think at the end of the day, consumers need to be educated about the real differences between quote-unquote game improvement irons and elite players' clubs, and that the differences are not nearly as widespread as some manufacturers may lead you to believe. Regardless of that, at the end of the day, education does not harm the consumer. It allows them to make more informed purchasing decisions, which is always better in the long run.